afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the December's OCM. I'll start the proceedings by the acknowledgement of country. So the Shire of Westminster acknowledges the Kepakul Wurundjeri people of this Noongar Nation and the Naju people who are traditional custodians of this land and their continuing connection to land, waters and community. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and we extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians today. As I said, welcome everyone to December's OCM. Seems to have got here awfully quickly. Not quite sure why that is, but anyway, that has happened. So currently we have all councillors in attendance except for Councillor Oborne. I'd also like to welcome Mr Noble and Mr Mearman, who are standing in for a couple of the directors that are not here today. Welcome to the people in the gallery, and welcome to Jeff and Emily. Sorry, I had Ash in my head and I knew that wasn't right. Getting bad. And of course to our CEO and our executive assistant. Welcome.
Mr Grieve is also an apology.
Mr Grieve is an apology today as he is unwell. So yeah, the apologies of course today are from Councillor Oborne, who has a granted leave of absence, and from Mr Baxter, who's on leave, and Mr Walker, who's on leave. Item 4 is applications for leave of absence. Does anyone wish to apply for a leave of absence? Councillor Flanagan.
Thank you, Mr President. Could I apply for a leave of absence from the 23rd of December through to the 27th of December, please?
Is anyone else wishing to apply for a leave of absence?
Just ask a question. Sorry, I've not done leave of absence much, not full bottle on it. I'm awaiting a specialist appointment, so when that comes through, can I just email you and get a leave of absence?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to apply for a leave of absence? I will also apply for a leave of absence from the 20th of January to the, at this stage anyway, the 1st of February. I'll be turning into Bionic Man. We need to move in. If there are no further applications for leave of absence, can I ask that someone move that we accept those leave of absence? Councillor McMullen, seconded by Councillor De Haas. Those in favour? 8-0, thank you. Announcement. Item 5 is announcements by person presiding without discussion. There is none. Declarations of members' interest. Does anyone wish to declare a financial interest? Anyone wish to declare a proximity interest? Declarations of impartiality interest. Councillor De Haas.
Yes, I'd like to declare an impartiality interest in 17.1, expression of interest, Old Station Master's Office, as I'm the current leaseholder.
Thank you. Are there any further direct declarations of impartiality interest? Councillor Johnson.
Yes, I'm a bit confused here. I have to declare impartiality in 17.1. The expression of interest of the Old Station Master's Office, as one of the applicants is known to me and is an ex-employer of mine. But I need to declare a second one, and that appears to have the same item number, which is 17.1 as well.
Yes, that will be listed as item 17.2.
Right, so I need to declare that as one of the people involved is known to me through a Shire-related incident, actually. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further declarations of impartial interest? If there are none, I'll move on to public question time. So it's good to actually have some people in the gallery today. Thank you very much for coming along. and thank you for your interest. Does anyone wish to come and ask a question? Okay, certainly. If you can come up to the podium, because that way people that are online can just be aware that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. So
Easy. Normally lecterns are way too tall for me, so this is great. All right, clear? Cool. So thank you, Shire of Esperance councillors, for the opportunity to address you all. I would like to note that I submitted an email to the Shire of Esperance and each of the individual councillors prior to making this address. I have a query specifically in response to the proposed $2 linear metre infringement for cropping in a thoroughfare without a permit under clause 5.9b for item 12.3.1, proposed activity in thoroughfares and public places and trading local laws. My overall question is, how has this been calculated and determined as an appropriate infringement? I make this query in relation to the below items. Item A, to crop on a road reserve implies the road reserve has been historically cleared of native vegetation. The Esperance district has experienced widespread illegal and unauthorised clearing of road reserves, i.e. the thoroughfare, in the past 5 to 8 years. This has inadequately been addressed by state and local government, i.e. the Shire of Esperance, to prevent this illegal activity and environmental destruction from further occurring. This has resulted in brazen land grabbing of public land, i.e. the road reserve and thoroughfares, to extend cropping practices by some farmers in the Esperance district. Hence, this infringement for cropping on thoroughfares is directly linked also to the clearing of native vegetation on thoroughfares. Given that the clearing of native vegetation and then the subsequent cropping is an ongoing large issue, is this infringement part of a wider strategy to address the current activity on rural thoroughfares? Has public consultation been undertaken as part of determining a strategy for conservation and protection of road reserves? Is this infringement a part of this strategy? Item B. A linear metre does not reflect an area value, for example a hectare. That is a more appropriate representative measure of impact for a spatial activity such as cropping. This implies that cropping, and prior to this clearing of vegetation, a thoroughfare is a similar offence for a 2 metre wide road reserve compared to a 30 metre wide road reserve. Different widths of road reserves have vastly different values and ecosystem services. For example, soil retention and reduction of erosion or habitat connectivity for threatened fauna species. Why is the infringement applied to a linear metre and not an area value? Item C. Does this infringement occur once, i.e. when the unauthorised activity is first investigated? Or can this infringement be applied for each occurrence of this unauthorised activity? Given that the cropping is an annual activity, this needs to be taken into consideration and outlined. Item D. Is the cost of this infringement significant enough to deter the unauthorised activity from occurring? Infringements are designed as hard enforcement to prevent unauthorised activity and to drive social change. If a farmer was to undertake a business case to analyse the potential returns and profits from cropping a thoroughfare compared to the infringement, would the infringement realistically act as a deterrent? If the business case demonstrates that infringement is significantly less than the return or profit a farmer would generate on the thoroughfare, it simply wouldn't be effective. In addition, it could be perceived that the Shire of Esperance is knowingly supporting these activities by not appropriately deterring through infringement processes. Can the Shire of Esperance provide to the community a cost-benefit analysis of the clearing, cropping and costs associated with prosecuting to show that the proposed $2 linear metre infringement is a realistic deterrent? Item E. Is this infringement applicable to all road reserves in the Shire of Esperance? Is there any difference in infringement from town or rural road reserves? For example, would the same infringement be applied for someone to crop the town foreshore road reserve or a rural road, such as Kendall Road? If the infringement is only applicable to rural road reserves, why are they worth less? Is that being driven by social pressures or ecosystem values that keep our community healthy? Item F. Does the infringement appropriately cover the Shire of Esperance's direct staff time, costs for investigating, legal obligations for reporting to the Department of Water and Environmental Regulations, DWER, under the Environmental Protection Act of 1986, and administration for issuing this fine? Item G. Is there any intent to rehabilitate the areas being cropped in thoroughfares, given cropping indicates that clearing of native vegetation has occurred? Has it been investigated if there is a legal obligation for the Shire of Esperance to rehabilitate, given they are ultimately land managers for these road reserves? If rehabilitation was required, does the infringement appropriately cover the potential costs of this activity, noting the significant recent increases in the rehabilitation market and industry due to the Nature Positive Plan proposed by the Australian Government in 2022? Item H. is a proposed infringement cost comparable with existing state Commonwealth legislation penalties. In particular, given that unauthorised and illegal activity of native vegetation is required prior to cropping, is a $2 linear metre fine comparable with fines under the state's Environmental Protection Act of 1986 and Biodiversity Conservation Act of 2016, or the Federal Environmental Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act of 1999? Is the infringement comparable to heritage legislation? Item I. Does the proposed infringement appropriately account for ecosystem services provided by the road reserve prior to cropping, i.e. prior to the clearing of vegetation? Have the international and national standards of natural capital accounting to determine a monetary value of ecosystem services been taken into account with this infringement cost? Does the Shire of Esperance value ecosystem services of our road reserves? For example, the role in the hydrological cycle to create rain and reduce drought, soil retention and health, reduction of erosion and maintenance of our engineering, such as spoon drains and roads, pollination of our crops, protection of biodiversity, reduction of dust, and acting as a carbon sink in a warming climate. Given that the grass patch region is currently experiencing drought, I would hope that as a community, we are aiming to protect anything that creates drain in our region. Item J. Has the Shire of Esperance's environmental team or Parks and Reserve manager been consulted as part of determining the cost of this infringement? I propose that the Shire of Esperance councillors do not accept item 12.3.1 and conduct a thorough analysis on an appropriate infringement cost for A, the clearing of road reserves, and B, misuse, inappropriate use, such as what's being proposed under this current one, supported by an overarching strategy, such as a roadside conservation policy, to protect our road reserves. The amendment of local laws offers an opportunity to remove just this one item and leave for next time means that change may never happen. Please consider the urgency of preventing further loss and illegal clearing of our road reserves in Esperance when you determine a pathway forward today on how this infringement will be applied. Illegal clearing and destruction of a public asset, our vegetation, that is critical for our health as a community and our agricultural industry is happening now. It's happening today. This current proposed infringement is simply not good enough. It's inappropriate, it's a mockery, and it's the cost of the environment, which means it's the cost to all of us that are here. Thank you.
Thank you very kindly for your questions. Obviously, we can't possibly answer all those questions
I
here.
recognise that's quite extensive.
But as you said, that you've also already emailed that in. Just a couple of things, I'll make a comment, and I'll also ask the CEO to make a comment. The $2 linear metre that is proposed in the local law that we have now is not designed to stop people from clearing native vegetation. Currently, people are not allowed to clear native vegetation, and if they do clear native vegetation, that is a problem for DWER. The Shire has no authority to implement any punishment on anyone that clears land because it is simply not, even if we want to go out and clear land, we have to, like road reserves, we actually have to go and get a permit to do that. So increasing the infringement around what you do with the land is not going to stop people from clearing land. What's going to stop people clearing from land is DWER stepping up, and when someone does clear the land, coming down on them like a ton of bricks to rehabilitate it and to repair it. So that I can understand where the link is. I can see that through your questions and through the email that you've sent previously. But currently we have, if someone clears the land and crops the land, we don't have any ability to infringe them or to do anything to them. The idea of putting this $2 linear metre in to begin with is so that we actually have the ability to infringe them for using that land that they've cleared. So at least it's an impact, because we've seen since the 2015 fires that went through Scadden, some of those road reserves have been continually cropped. We have put forward that clearing to DWER and nothing has happened to it. But those lands have continued to crop, but we don't have the ability to stop them. No, it doesn't cover the cost to replace the spoon drains that they've levelled out so that they can crop. But it's a starting point, because we also need to get this through the Joint Standing Committee, and we need to be able to justify why we want to infringe these people through a Joint Standing Committee. So I understand and listen to each and every one of your questions, and they're very valid. I get that, but I just want to make sure that you understand the distinction of the role that Shire has as opposed to the role of local government at DWER.
Can I make a further comment?
Yep.
So yeah, totally, absolutely, very separate pieces of legislation. Under the EP Act, DWER is responsible for fining and penalties related to actual clearing. However, it's about recognising that social change requires strategic, overarching vision. The reason that they're being cleared is to crop. mostly they're to create money off public land. So you cannot separate them entirely when you're looking at it from a social perspective of what's driving the initial impact. It's because of that activity, and this is where you guys have the power today, which is the infringement and the cost. So if you guys put forward an appropriate infringement for a fine of people misusing, that may stop the clearing happening in the first place. We know that state government often fails in regulation of many, many things, including protection of our environment, but this is where as a local community, you guys could actually do something about that to prevent that trigger from occurring. So I totally recognise they're separate, but that's taking a very segregation kind of approach and looking at them in separate boxes, whereas, yeah, as a community we can stand up and go, you do have this power to do something today, it's just about a choice about whether you want to. $2 may appear as a start, but yeah, or it could appear as a joke, depending on your perspective.
But as a local government, we can't have a local law that duplicates a state law or a state punishment.
Yeah. But thank you for the
Sarah,
clarification.
did you have anything to add?
Well, only essentially what the President said, as well as the maximum penalties under our legislation, under the uniform local government uniform regulations, is only maximum 5,000. So then under a local law that's put in, you can only have modified penalties of 10% of that. So our ability to prosecute is really limited, and that's where, if there's legal clearing, it really should be done through DWER. The most effective
You could
legislation.
apply the maximum penalties for cropping.
You could do, but you wouldn't get a modified penalty through at $5,000 because that's the maximum penalty. So a modified penalty, it should be, and it's in the local law, is the commission for the prescribed offence relatively minor matters and the straightforward issues of law and fact. So it needs to be easily determined, essentially. So it's only for really quite minor things. So if the Joint Standing Committee somehow determined that potentially this penalty could be more than 5,000, they'd probably knock back our local law.
Okay.
So yeah, that's where we're caught a little bit.
And one of the other steps for a linear metre, and I get what you're talking about as far as a 2 metre road bridge and a 30 metre road bridge, but also in the ease of measuring it, if you have to go out and actually do a spatial measurement, you're going to need a surveyor to go out and actually survey the area and to do it. Whereas a linear metre, you can go, well, you've cleared from here to there and it's a kilometre long, it's $2, that's $2,000.
I mean, look, yeah, I would disagree to some extent. Having actually worked as a professional environmental consultant, it's really not hard to chuck out Python algorithms across your spatial data, do some intersections between your road reserve widths and distance and stuff. It's actually a really, really quick exercise. Understand what you're saying. Obviously people have different literacy, whether they can calculate metre versus hectares, but there are some really, really quick, easy, automated tools to be able to do so.
No, thank you very much for your input. Thank you.
Awesome. Did anyone else have any further?
Councillor Graham, did you have?
You made comment that council have done nothing to try and eliminate that. We actually, previous president, Mickle and myself, a bunch of farmers were invited from that region, some other representative bodies, and discussed the problem that had been happening. And I guess out of that meeting, nothing's come of it because of what's been said earlier with DWER and so on. But a part of that was the warning that there could be implications for what they've done in the past, and if they continue to do it. Majority of farmers aren't necessarily land grabbing because it's about weed control and so on. So one of the advices in that meeting was to tell farmers when they do their GPS is to stay within their boundary. I'm not sure whether that's happening, obviously, but that was part of that meeting. So, we've not done nothing. We have sort of stimulated the discussion with some of the farmers that did attend the meeting, and we'll obviously seek to sort of follow that up if we can, and
Yeah, so that's,
especially with DWER.
yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, Councillor Graham. It's great to see action actually happening.
Yep.
I mean, I would advise further to that, you could take it to a full engagement strategy, particularly how you follow through and you continue those monitoring to ensure it doesn't continue to happen. Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ingram.
I'm addressing the same item, 12.1.3, and appreciate the comments that have already come forward, but I'll proceed with what I have to say. So my name is Colin Ingram and I reside at 266 South Coast Highway, Chadwick. I am Deputy Chair of South Coast NRM, but I'm here representing myself tonight. I'll make that quite clear. Not representing South Coast NRM. However, roadside reserves are a matter of great interest to South Coast NRM because of their critical role in the landscape. From the little information that I have had available to me, it's difficult to fully address the underlying policy rationale that this infringement has been created from. If this infringement is what it seems to be on face value, then it, in my view, is a poor attempt to address the matter of roadside clearing. The Shire of Esperance is responsible for the management of roadside reserve vested in it. Roadside reserves are public land, and as the third tier of government, it has a responsibility to properly protect and manage what is a community asset. Illegal vegetation clearing in Esperance Shire has a long history, and this approach will do little to correct the errant behaviour of some small number of landholders that are undertaking these activities. Many road reserves hold declared rare flora, DRF, some of which is found nowhere else but in road reserves. Road reserves also serve as a vital role in connecting areas of remnant bushland and therefore contribute to the movement of genetic material across the landscape. We now live in a highly fragmented landscape, and this makes road reserves a critical asset in conserving biodiversity. As I said, I appreciate the Shire is trying to do something, but this approach will exacerbate the problem. It doesn't address the underlying cause. If this penalty is what it seems to be, it is in effect condoning the clearing and misuse of road reserves. The proposed approach will give licence to others to continue roadside clearing and illegal use of the land because it will see the Shire as being soft on the misuse of road reserves. I'm not going to question the issue of the $2 per linear metre, whether it's an adequate penalty, because it is just the wrong policy approach. Landholders should be instructed to re-fence the reserve boundary and revegetate the area cleared, and appreciate it as a matter for the state. It's time to put a stop to the destruction of public asset and the theft of public land. My question is, can this proposed policy approach be reviewed? One, and two, that further action be taken to address these matters with DWER. Finally, thank you for the opportunity to speak to Council tonight. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you. So some of those points will be covered when we address the item through the meeting. All right, did you have anything you wished?
Thank you for the opportunity to address Council tonight. My name is Lori-Ann Shibish. I reside in the rural ward here in Esperance. I fully support the submissions made by Katie White and Colin Ingram. I think they're very well researched and have some extremely valid points. I recognize Councillor West Graham's points that the Shire has met with farmers and had some discussions. I would highly recommend that those discussions have maybe a round two, possibly, to see what has transpired since the council met with them, and has there been any changes or any suggestions on how to tackle this problem. Through driving around through our area here, the amount of road reserve continues to be removed, and it's just unbelievable, the loss of biodiversity and loss of vegetation, especially when we know that there are threatened ecological species here found nowhere else in the world. I have contacted DWER about this as well, and I appreciate the same position council is in that there has been no action from the reports of widespread clearing. And it's not just clearing for the sake of, and some will say, oh, well, we're just weed suppressing. The fact that there are crops growing right to the edge of the road is not weed suppression, I'm sorry. It is making a profit from those lands. So I would again ask the council if they could take any action in having meetings again with landholders over this issue. But more importantly, would the Shire consider, again, addressing it with DWER, having DWER come down here, invite them to come down here and have a summit on a really important issue that's happening down here, a real critical issue, and try and work with DWER a bit more to see, is there something that they can do? Is there more action they can take? Can they work in cooperation with the Shire to try and bring an end to this practice of loss of our very precious biodiversity of our native vegetation? Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and thank you for your interest in that particular item. As I said, there will be some further discussion and certainly some comments when we get to that point in the agenda. There are no further public questions. And I apologise, councillors, for allowing that to go past what it should have done, but I thought it was important that people got the opportunity to be heard. So. And it's not always that we get people coming in here to ask public questions either, so it's always good. Public addresses and deputations, I think we've gone through them as well. Petitions. Confirmation of minutes. Item 10. Minutes were submitted or were sent out earlier. Does anyone have any questions in regards to the minutes? Councillor Johnson?
Right, well, you know what my question is.
Yeah, but nobody else does.
Okay. I didn't really actually understand your response with your email. I do apologise. But as we know, there was an issue with my delegates report last month, and you assured me my entire email would be included in the minutes, which I did check this afternoon, and the two items that had been left out, which I had alerted the administration of, hadn't been included, but I think your email did say to me they're getting included in this month's, is that correct?
One will we, yes.
So could I please get the second one included in this month's? When
No,
it gets to the delegates report.
and to your point about them not being in there, the reason that they weren't in there was that all councillors were requested to have their delegates report in by Monday morning so that they could be included into the preparation of the agenda. It's not a difficult task, everyone else seems to manage that. There was one that was omitted that should have been, and I apologise for that, as I did my email.
There was two omitted.
There was one that was omitted. The other point was that I sent out an email earlier this week stating that the items that will be included in the delegates' reports, and if you look at the standing orders, local law standing orders, 2015, the delegates' report is for reports from delegates of council committees. So that's all that the standing orders stipulate need to be in the delegates' report. So if you are a councillor, a councillor delegate for a committee, then you can come back and report on that meeting. As the chair, I also think it's really important that if we have external briefings, or if we attend a function as a official representative of council, that also be put into that report to allow the community to understand some of the things that councillors do. The second item that you are talking about was a briefing that was held internal, and it's an internal briefing. It wasn't done by an external person, and those internal briefings never have been, up until recently, included in that delegates report. It's a part of your everyday councillor duties. You don't need to list everything that we do as a councillor. So that was the determination that I made in and around the delegates report.
Well, my apologies, because I thought our internal briefings were included, and I will be going back and checking, because I'm pretty sure we've all been including them somewhat, but that's fine.
Up until 2023, yes. There was no internal briefings in the delegates report up until 2023.
Maybe you should have explained all this through the email, but that's
Beg your pardon?
fine.
Excuse me?
And that's fine.
Excuse me?
I didn't want to have this discussion
Excuse
in the
me?
meeting, did I? I said that. I didn't want to. Thank you.
You want to make comments? Make them so everyone can hear them. Don't do it under your breath. Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Right. Confirmation of minutes. Do I have anyone that... Councillor De Haas. Item 10. Thank you. Do I have a second for that motion? Councillor Davies, thank you. Do you wish to speak to the...
No, thank you.
Is there anything further? I'll take it ready to vote. Those in favour? Those against? 7 for 1 against. Thank you. Item 11, delegates' reports without discussion delegates' reports without discussion, which are up there. As I said earlier, councillors, there has been some conjecture of the past about what should or shouldn't be in the delegates' report. So to clear it all up, I've sat down and had a look at the standing orders local law. And as I explained earlier, this is what I've determined will be permissible within the delegates' reports. I believe that it shows the community the items that we do that are probably not over and above, but external to sitting inside this room. Councillor Starcevich, is there anything you wish to attend?
Nothing further to add, thank you.
Councillor Johnson?
Well, I'll be honest, I'd like to find my email that I sent in and have a check, seeing as this is the only go we get at it. I'm learning how the process works. But first up, I do need to add one that I know is not there, and that is the, I attended the RAC opening on the 26th of November, RAC Caravan Park. And I'm going to find the email, so when we get to the end, if I find anything else, I'll come back. Thank you.
Councillor Davies?
Just one that has slipped my mind was the Esperance Christian Primary School graduation on the 3rd of December. Thank you.
Councillor Flanagan?
As tabled, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councillor McMullen?
I did actually email through a nil report, but I obviously looked at the wrong calendar. I was attending the RAC Holiday Park expansion opening, the Christmas seniors dinner, and on the 9th of December, the Castletown graduation ceremony.
Councillor Das?
Nothing further to add, thank you.
Councillor Graham?
My apologies, Secretary, the RAC. I will apologise, no one else did.
Yeah, sorry, through the chair, I forgot the RAC and the seniors as well.
No, nothing further. Happy to answer any questions or clarifications, Councillor Hahn.
Does anyone have any questions in regards to this item?
Sorry. Yes, I'd like to move the officer's recommendation that Council 1 receive 3 copies of Carly Florison's new book in lieu of fees paid to acquire copies of images from the museum archives for use in the book. 2, request that Carly Florison hold the launch event for her new book at the Esperance Museum.
Thank you. Councillor Starcevich, you wish to second it?
Yes, I will, thank you.
Would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Yes, I would, please. The work that Carly has done, both as a volunteer at the museum and in conjunction with Janine Riggs, is an absolute asset to our community. Carly has, along with Janine, recently received a commendation from the Heritage Council of WA. They were recognised at an award ceremony in Fremantle. Their Esperance Historic Homestead series was among 55 projects and organisations shortlisted. So for us to show our support to Carly is showing our commitment to growth in our community. To receive copies of her book will benefit the museum and anyone wishing to research Esperance history in the future. So I urge anyone with doubts regarding this to reconsider and support a local who supports us. Thank you.
Yes, the motion? Councillor Starcevich is the second. Would you speak for the motion?
I think Councillor De Haas has summed it up really well. Thank you.
Yes, the motion? For the motion or amendment? Take it you're ready to vote. Those in favour? Thank you. Item 12.2, 12.2.1 is a petition to stop the 1080 baits in the Monjamut Special Rural Zone. Again, Mr. Booth, did you have anything further that you wish to add?
No, nothing further to what Mr Walker mentioned last week. We still haven't had any response from DWER over this, or DPIRD over this, so yeah, there's nothing further to add.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions in regards to this item? We covered fairly extensively last week through both in the briefing that we had and also at the agenda briefing. If not, do I have anyone willing to move the officer's recommendation for an alternative? Anyone want to move the officer's recommendation?
Yes. I'd like to move the officer's recommendation that Council 1 note that due to the Code of Practice for 1080 administration review by the DPIRD still being underway since August 2022 and the Shire of Esperance is not being able to complete Council Resolution 0822-184 from the August 2022 ordinary meeting, and 2, subject to the review being released for public comment, requests the Chief Executive Officer to submit a submission to the Department of Primary Industries and the Regional Development to request consideration of appropriate changes in the Code of Practice for 1080 that finds a balance between agriculture use and neighbouring intense land use.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Flanagan, thank you. Do you wish to speak to the motion, Councillor Graham?
This is just formalising a process of a motion that's been on the books for a number of time, and obviously we haven't been able to have any action from that item. Another case of state government departments getting wound up in the back rooms and nothing getting achieved.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Anyone wish to speak against the motion? Councillor Flanagan, do you wish to speak for the motion?
Thank you, Mr. President. Only to add that 1080 remains an effective tool available to RBGs in the control of wild dogs and other feral pests in the Shire. So there needs to be, as outlined in the recommendation, a balanced view in relation to that. And it's interesting to see that DPIRD, in their dysfunction, continue not to be able to resolve these sorts of issues. Thank you very much.
Oh, that's a shame. That might not be such a bad thing. Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against the motion? For the motion? Look, I'll speak for the motion. I understand that whilst the application was for the Shire to put in guidelines around how 1080 is used, that's not the Shire's role. And unfortunately, you know, with this review underway, by us taking the time to determine and work out a policy around what we can or can't or should or shouldn't do around 1080, and then have DPIRD finalise their review and then have to go back and change it, I think this is the best way that we deal with it. We make sure that we get the CEO to put in the submission when those are called for to make sure that our voice is heard. And then I guess if necessary, it can be revisited at that point. But I think this is a sensible way to go. So thank you. Any speakers against, for, or an amendment? I'll take it you're ready to vote. Those in favour? 8-0, thank you. Item 12.3.1, propose activities in thoroughfares and public places and trading local law. Mr. Burge, did you have anything further that you wish to add?
I think most of it was covered during public question time, we don't have a lot of technical staff here as well to answer it, so some of the technical questions I might not be able to answer, but just to let you know that this is just the first step in essentially wanting to advertise our proposed local law. We'll be then asking for submissions, essentially like the ones that we've received just in the last couple of days. So this is only the first step in the making of the local law. So we still have an opportunity to do some work, especially around the cropping of road verges. Still an opportunity to do some work with DEWA or other relevant agencies to make sure that the final local law is acceptable between now and when it's endorsed by council. So yeah, I'd still encourage council to go ahead and advertise the local law, and in the meantime we can do some further work on it.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Mr. President. Question for the CEO. So I'd just like to confirm that if this does go through and then is advertised as such, it would still have to come back to council to actually be formally adopted?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
It can't. It needs to go through the process. It needs to go to the Joint Standing Committee. It needs to go to other agencies as well for their comment. And in the meantime, our officers can still do further work on it.
Okay.
And then it needs to come back to council for final endorsement.
And to follow up on that, if this did go through as is, and if there were changes to be made between it, coming back to our table again, what would be the process for that?
So if there are going to be significant changes, we might need to go and re-advertise it again and go through the process again. If there are minor changes, they might be able to be done before it's in final endorsement.
Thank you.
Councillor Flanagan.
Just to be absolutely clear on this, so notwithstanding that we haven't approved this in terms of proceeding to advertise, what you're saying is that the matters that have been raised tonight, specifically in relation to Ms White's submission, they will be considered as part of that process?
Yeah, well, that's what I would be suggesting, is that our officers have a look at that whilst it's being out for advertising, and if significant changes need to be made to specifically that clause, that then would report back through to council at that point in time, and we might need to then re-advertise it if significant changes are made. The other alternative council might want to do is lay the matter on the table, have a briefing with the relevant staff to make sure our current one is advertised, or the after those considerations. So it's, yeah, whichever way council wishes to go with it.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Seeing that there is no further questions, do I have anyone willing to move the officer's recommendation or an alternate? Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to move an alternative motion that council lay the matter on the table to allow for a report and or briefing on cropping within road reserves to be provided, and to provide time for officers to answer questions posed by members of the public.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor McMullen, second it. Councillor Davies, do you wish to speak to your motion?
I would, thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody who's spoken tonight and everyone who's emailed us. It's not often that we actually receive a lot of engagement in things like this from the community, so it's actually pleasing to see. And it's great to see that there's such well thought out and well constructed arguments around this. While I do acknowledge that we could go out and advertise it and then make changes, I would personally, as a councillor, be more comfortable putting something out to advertisement that we are confident in. I personally wouldn't be comfortable with how this stands as it is, especially after the comments and the questions that have been raised.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against the motion?
Can I just make one small amendment request? I just think it'd be vital that we have a date to bring this back to council, so I'd propose that we change the recommendation that council will lay the matter on the table until, and I guess I'd probably propose, the March OCM at the latest, given obviously there's not that many working days between now and January, and it just, obviously it can be brought back sooner, but I don't know, Mr. CEO.
Yeah, that should be reasonable.
Yep. Are you happy with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. As a seconder, did you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you. I think enough's been said.
Is there anyone wishing to speak against the motion? For the motion? Amendment? You can speak for the motion.
I'll just speak for the motion. Look, I agree, it's probably sensible to lay it on the table, but I also acknowledge we also have had a briefing prior to the last election, so I guess we've got new councillors in the room that would be helpful to hear an updated version of that, so.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? Speaker for the motion? Just to play devil's advocate, guys, I'd also like to foreshadow a motion, which is the officer's recommendation, but with a point 4, that during the public comment period, that officers brief council and work with relevant agencies shit, and I hate the words here now, I haven't got them on me. Work with relevant agencies to reduce road verge clearing, land clearing, or to incorporate, incorporate items that will reduce road verge land clearing. I don't get to speak to that yet, do I? As I said, that is just a foreshadowed motion. So. Is there anyone wish to speak for the substantive motion, which is Councillor Davies to lay it on the table? This one.
Might as well add my voice to the, to the many voices on this issue. I just think it's responsible for, as a council, to ensure that any policy that we put out for public comment is as close to how we would substantively want that policy to be, to provide informed public comment. I would also probably do a soapbox thing to say it's disappointing, given the importance of our road reserves environmentally, how disappointing it is that Dewar is absolutely missing in relation to this whole issue. Yet they seem to be very quick to pull the trigger when private landowners clear land. They've gone missing on this issue, and it's extraordinarily disappointing. But I believe that it would be fruitful and helpful for council to have further consideration briefings in relation to all the matters that have been raised at this meeting prior to finalisation of the policy before it goes out for public comment. Thank you.
Can we speak against the motion? I'll speak against the motion, and the reason being is that I don't believe that laying it on the table and having another internal conversation is going to solve the issues that we've seen here tonight. We've seen that we haven't had any response from this until we put it out to the public. I think it's really important that we take the opportunity to put this out to the public, let people have a look at it, find out what other information is likely to come back from the public, and then we can look to change the local law as it is. And if it's major changes and we have to send it back out for community, then for community consultation, then we do that. But my concern around this is that, again, we're keeping it in-house until we get to the point where we go out. So. Anyone speak for the motion? Against the motion or an amendment? In that case, I take it you're ready. Sorry, Councillor Davis.
Apologies, may I have the right to reply, Mr. President?
Oh, sorry, my apologies. Yes, well done.
Thank you, Mr. President. I take the point you made about putting it out for advertisement and being able to fashion it with the public and getting feedback on that. But I believe in the current state it sits in, especially given the fact it was in linear meters rather than an area, I believe it'd be important for us to actually refine this and have something when we put it out as close to what we would like to see implemented as possible.
Apologies for that, Councillor Davis. Well done. If there's no further comments for or against, I take it you're ready to vote. Those in favour? Those against? 7-1. Thank you. Item 12.3.2, which is on page 21. Adoption of the 23-24 annual report. The officer's recommendation is on page 22. Mr. Booth, do you have any further you wish to add?
Well, unless Mr. Meerman's got something, but I'm
Sorry, Mr. Meerman,
comfortable
is
with
there
it,
anything you wish to add?
No, I've got nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions in regards to this item? Do I have anyone willing to move the officer's recommendation or an alternate? No. Councillor Davies?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to move the officer's recommendation that Council 1 accepts the 2023-2024 Shire of Esperance annual report as presented. 2, convenes the annual general meeting of electors for 6 p.m. Tuesday, 4th of February 2025 at the Esperance Civic Centre. And 3, requests that the Chief Executive Officer, pursuant to sections 5.29 and 5.55 of the Local Government Act 1995, provide the requisite statutory local public notice of the acceptance of the 2023-24 Shire of Esperance annual report and the time and date of the annual general meeting of electors.
Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Johnson, thank you. Councillor Davies, do you wish to speak to your motion?
No further comment, thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against the motion? Councillor Johnson is the second. Do you wish to speak for the motion?
We probably should acknowledge the effort that the administration puts into our annual report every year. So I would just like to acknowledge that and say thank you for all the efforts from all of the relevant peoples. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone wish to speak against the motion? For the motion or an amendment? In that case, I take it ready to vote. Those in favour? 8-0. Thank you. Item 12.3.3, lease variation request for part of lot 64 Thompson Street and 68 and 69 Stewart Street. Mr. Meerman, do you have anything you wish to add to this?
Through the chair, nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions in regards to this item? The officer's recommendation is on page 25. Do I have anyone willing to move the office? Councillor Councillor Johnson.
Good to go now? Yep. I would like to move that council, one, subject to the Department of Land's approval, vary the lease agreement with the Esperance Pistol Club for part of lots 64 Thompson Street and 68 and 69 Stewart Street, West Beach, to vary the building insurance clause to reflect current practice, and two, waive the lease variation fee of $245 inclusive of GST.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Flanagan, thank you. Councillor Johnson, do you wish to speak to your motion?
Not really, it's just an administrative report and, it's
Thank you.
pretty straightforward. Thanks.
Does anyone wish to speak against the motion? Councillor Flanagan, do you wish to speak for the motion?
Nothing further. Thank you, Mr. President.
Anyone wish to speak against the motion? For the motion or an amendment? I'll take it you're ready to vote. Those in favour? 8-0. Thank you. Item 12.3.4, payment of accounts on page 28. That's what test your knowledge. Mr. Meerman, do you have any?
Through the chair, nothing further. Thank you.
Mr. Bush, do you have anything you wish to add?
No, I hope that all your questions were answered from the last one, but if there was any, I'm still happy to take them. If we'll send them through the Shire President, we can get them answered.
Are there any questions in regards to this item?
Could I just clarify what Mr. Burge just said? So because I've been having a very busy week, can we still ask, because Mrs. Baxter was going away and I didn't want to hassle her.
Did you have a question in regards
Yes,
to
so
the item?
can we email
Yes.
after? Thank you very much.
Or you can ask the question now if you wish.
No, I would love to email. Thank you.
So just email them through the Shire President.
Is there any further questions in regards to this item? The officer's recommendation on page 28. Does anyone wish to move the office? Councillor Starcevich, thank you.
Yes, I'd like to move the officer's recommendation that council receive the list of accounts paid for the period 1st of November to the 30th of November 2024 as listed in the attachment.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor McMullen, thank you. Councillor Starcevich, do you wish to speak to your motion?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against the motion? Councillor Flanagan? Councillor Flanagan, there you go. Councillor McMullen, do you wish to?
Nothing further, thank you.
Anyone wish to speak against the motion, for the motion or an amendment? In that case, I take it you're ready to vote. Those in favour? 8-0, thank you. Item 12.3.5, which is a financial services report on page 52. With the officer's recommendation, first of all, Mr. Mayor, is there anything further you wish to add?
Nothing further to add. Thank you.
Just making him earn his money. No. See ya, nothing further? Does anyone have any questions in regards to this item? The officer's recommendation on page 52. Does anyone wish to? Councillor Haas, thank you.
Yes, I would like to move the officer's recommendation that council receive the attached report entitled Monthly Financial Report for the month of November 2024.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Johnson, thank you. Do you wish to speak to your motion, Councillor?
Yes, I will, thank you. So, reading this report in the lead up to our final OCM of 2024, I pondered a few of the statements in the compilation report from the Manager of Financial Services. Rates collected to the end of November are slightly down on last year, and Rex Airlines still have a debt of over $400,000. However, the council is still solvent with no matters of liquidity that need our attention, and we have the ability to meet the short-term demands of our suppliers. So with this in mind, I would like to offer my thanks and wishes of a very Merry Christmas to our Finance Department and thank them.
And wish to speak against the motion? Councillor Johnson, as a second, do you wish to speak for the motion?
No, nothing further to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Wish to speak against the motion? For the motion or amendment? I take it ready to vote. Those in favour? 8-0, thank you. Item 12.4, Executive Service Information Bulletin on page 69. Mr. Burge, do you have anything you wish to add?
No.
Does anyone have any questions in regards to the information bulletin? Do I have anyone willing to move the officer's recommendation or an alternate? No one willing to move the officer's? Councillor Flanagan. Councillor Flanagan.
I move the officer's recommendation that council accepts 1, information bulletin November 2024, 2, council priority summary, corporate performance November 2024, 3, small grants, community grants program.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Haas, thank you. Councillor Flanagan, do you wish to speak to your motion?
Just to say that this report is wunderbar. And, it's as Councillor De Haas has waxed lyrical in previous council meetings, is that it's just a wonderful opportunity to have a look and just review the various activities that have been undertaken by the council on behalf of its community. Thank you.
So I wish to speak against the motion? Councillor De Haas is a second. You do wish to speak for the motion?
I guess Councillor Flanagan just said it all. Thank you.
Does anyone wish to speak against the motion? For the motion? An amendment? In that case, I'll take it you're ready to vote. Those in favour? 8-0. Thank you. Item 13 is reports of committees. There is none. Item 14, motions of which notice has been given.
No.
Item 15, members' questions with or without notice. Are there any members' questions with or without notice? Item 16, urgent business is approved by decision.
So yeah, councillors, we sent around a late agenda item, item 17.2. It was incorrectly labelled 17.1, a confidential item. So we'll just need council to move a motion if you are happy to accept that item, and then we can consider it in under section 17.
Councillor Flanagan.
I would like to move a motion to support that we consider this urgent matter. Yeah, that'll be the one. Accept the urgent business. Item 17.2, title legal, employee legal.
You second it?
Can you ask a question at a time like this or not?
No. This is only about whether we are going to accept
I know.
to look at the motion
But I'm
as
just
an urgent motion.
questioning why it came late when we're reading the information. It could have really been included in the agenda, so why was it?
That's a determination for the CEO to make.
Do I ask that in the confidential item? Because I do want to know why that didn't get included
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
in that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against the motion? For the motion? No amendments. I'll take you ready to vote. Those in favour? Thank you. So we'll address item, and it will be labelled item 17.2 in the minutes, even though it is labelled 17.1. That's just a glitch with the program in the way that it operates. Yes, Mr. Meerman, I'm looking at you. Item 17 is matters behind closed doors. Mr. Graham.
I'd like to move that we go behind closed doors to handle those matters.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Stasovich, that will be fine. Those in favour? 8-0, thank you. You wish to vote? You're sitting, thank you. For or against?
Sorry, I don't know.
Can you just go and open the door just in case somebody's there?
Put back live. Can you just bring up that first? Thank you. For those that are online, thank you very much. Council dealt with 2 items behind closed doors. One was the assigning the lease for the old station master's office, which was assigned to Esperance Care Services, with the relevant rents and lease terms being provided. The second one was that council supported employee identified in a report with legal representation costs indemnification in line with our policy around legal representation costs. Thank you all for being online. Thank you all for being here, for getting through this 12 months. Seem to have got around awful quick, but here we are, so well done. And I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank the CEO, the senior staff, and even though they're not here, but you guys can take it on then, and all the staff for their help and assistance throughout the year and the work that's done. So thank you very much. And I'd like to wish you all a wonderful and safe and Merry Christmas. Those that are working over Christmas, thank you very much. Those that are not, please enjoy and have fun. To the councillors, we'll see you later on tonight. Thank you very much for the work that you've done around the table this year, and have a wonderful Christmas and New Year, and no doubt we'll be in touch early in the new year. Meeting's closed.